here's the thing. This is the beginning of the end of the royal family. There's not a genuine question in that, having watched this, and I'll explain more as we go. The only thing I can say at the beginning is what I kind of alluded to on Friday's programme. We never talk about these kind of issues on this programme. We never talk about Meghan and Harry and all the ramifications. We just don't really touch royal issues. But you know what's happened now. You know, you've got a B-list actor and a B-list royal. It becomes sort of rather interesting. The word bombshell is a kind of a classic tabloid trope, right? It's invariably used when people like Gemma Collins announce their next weight loss initiative. It doesn't really mean very much. It's just a good old-fashioned piece of tabloid terminology. However, no getting away from this. This was a bombshell interview from a family breakdown. As I mentioned, suicide, accusations of racism, and who made who cry most often. By the way, and I'm going to open up and just kind of invite your initial responses on this. 0344 499 1000. Am I the only one that doesn't think it's odd that you might ask about the skin colour of a baby from a mixed race couple, particularly if you're the family? I mean, if somebody had turned to her and says, "Good Lord, I hope this baby isn't black," I mean, that would clearly be a horrendous thing to say. But a simple inquiry, since when has that been offensive or racist? I've got two mates, we'll call them Mark and Lisa. She's white, he's black. They never stopped talking about it. It was a massive conversation based on nothing more than intrigue. Will our baby be more Rihanna or Macy Gray? Or will our baby be whiter than a bedsheet? These conversations happen. They were just conversations. Since when has commenting on race or inquiring about race become an act of racism? But I do remember something that occurred to me when I first heard this. I do remember at the time when they announced that Meghan was pregnant. There was a lot of race-baiting, anti-establishment voices on social media, hoping that she would have a baby who was black in order to mess up the whiteness of the British establishment. So clearly to those people, colour was absolutely an issue. And what's interesting about that is that Oprah Winfrey clearly didn't pursue that. All right, who was it? I'm not going to say. Fine. And then Harry chips in that he wouldn't want to talk about this. And look, genuinely, I think he flushed at that point. Just looked genuinely perturbed by the inclusion of that. Did he not know that was coming? Did he not know that was going to be mentioned? Do we know if Oprah Winfrey asked about her family, by the way? I mean, other than a very dignified mother, it seems, that would have been the bigger story. I mean, this is like the American version of Benefit Street. Have you seen them? I mean, the dad, we mentioned this last week, who's appeared on GMB more times than Piers Morgan, a man who flogged private letters to a newspaper. The half-sisters and cousins try to flog their stories and their angles. 0344 499 1000. But what's a disgrace, I think we could all agree this whole thing was. In America, I was talking to an American journalist friend before the programme. This is playing out in a really different way. I mean, the Americans are looking at this like this is a proper reveal of life in the royal family. This is what the royal family is like. And this poor young thing called Meghan was taken in and exploited. And they were demanding of her. It was a disgrace, a bit part actress who didn't like the rules of engagement, who realised you might have to work for a living. And you can see the kind of horror suddenly dawn on her as she realised that life wasn't about red carpets and canapes, Louis Vuitton handbags and glitzy West Coast restaurants. You can almost feel the whole thing unravel as she thought to herself, if I was in LA now, I'd be at a pool party with the Kardashians. But here I am at a donkey sanctuary in Aldershot, wearing palace-approved tights. You can almost see the moment that occurred to Meghan. Is this really what I've agreed to do? When she realised life in the royal fast lane wasn't for her, she set out, of course, to destroy the royal family. A woman with high expectations who didn't want to play by the rules. She's trashed our royal family. She's encouraged her husband to trash his own family in the process as well, and he did. 0344 499 1000. There was a piece written at the weekend. I think it was, I'm tempted to say it was Janice Turner. So that would have been don't want to get this one wrong. That would be terrible. I think it would have been the Telegraph. But it was entitled something like, if you're sort of under 35, you'll be Team Meghan. And if you're over 35 and you're kind of an anti-woke knuckle dragger, you'll be Team Harry. I'm not sure I'm Team anybody in this. I thought the interview was a disgrace. See, I got it wrong, didn't I? It was in the Times. There you go. Sunday Times, I think. Is that right? Which means she works in this building, all right? Okay, I got it wrong. I'm fessing up. Probably bump into her in the lift tomorrow. So there was a piece looking at the kind of way that different age groups might respond to this. And I think that's probably true. I think it's probably true. I think there is something in that. And I think, Meghan, and the reason why the whole inclusion of Meghan in the royal family was amazing and fabulous, and I think everybody thought it was to begin with, or most people did, was for this very reason. I've lost count of how many times I'm on record as saying this. This is fabulous. I mean, that the most powerful photograph is that of the Queen, Meghan's mum, I think Harry and Meghan and the baby. I think there's that picture of all of them. And if you ever wanted to see kind of an example of the changing face of a royal family that gets it, that does things differently, they've moved beyond just marrying in, and it's changed. Everything has changed, and even the fact that the racial mix of their family will change as well. All of those things, I thought, were absolutely huge positives for the image of the royal family, which was always looking rather tired. And I think we all have respect for the Queen. And then you look around and you think, well, there's some murky goings on. Prince Andrew, I know he was at Pizza Express at the time, but nonetheless, come on, it ain't pretty. And there's been all sorts of other things going on. But I think the dignity of the royal family is mostly intact. But I can see that through the lens of younger eyes, it would arguably look like an institution that didn't have much relevance. Enter Meghan, the whole thing became rather different. You almost needed a bit of showbiz to continue the interest and the relevance of the wider royal family. So it kind of worked. And I sense from then, she decided she didn't want to do this. He'd already, bearing in mind, this is a vulnerable young lad, and I can't even begin to imagine, and I don't want to, it would be unfair because I don't know. Clearly, there were two brothers who lost their mum on that terrible night. But it seems that whilst William has somehow been able to put that somewhere and do something with it, we know that Harry really did fall apart. And what kid wouldn't fall apart? And all of that under the glare of the world's media as well. I can't imagine what that young lad would have gone through. So he was already primed to, be uncomfortable perhaps, or struggled with many of the elements of the firm, as they call it, the institution. He would have already had issues. We know he already had issues, but he was kind of making it work. And then she comes along and thinks she's hit the flipping jackpot. Man alive. She's an actress. She sought fame as her drug of choice. She sought endorsement, and boy, she got it bigger than she could ever have imagined. She probably thought it was a good day when she landed the gig on Suits, and then suddenly realises, wow, this is what real fame looks like. This is what global fame looks like, when you're carted around with armed men protecting you as you go shopping, if you can go shopping. And it was that latter point that caused the problems. Oh no, there are rules around this. It's a constant job. It's a constant gig. What you wear, where you go, you'll be told. You've got an appointment here, you're opening this on one day, you're going to be making a speech on that another day. That's constant. No, you can't have an opinion on anything you want to have an opinion on. It all has to go through the palace press office. That's called being a working royal. That's how it happens in nearly every other country around the world, and particularly with us here, with the most famous royal family on planet Earth. It happens here as well. And I think she realised that. He was in the absolute prime position to be sympathetic to that. And between the two experiences and opinions, they decide to leg it to LA. In a dignified way? No. Let's speak to Oprah Winfrey along the way. Let's wait until Meghan is pregnant, because that gives her a certain kind of vulnerability in the interview as well. And let's just dish the dirt on my entire family. Let's talk about them causing suicidal thoughts. Let's talk about rows I had with various men. Let's talk about the fact my old man won't return phone calls. Talk about washing your dirty laundry in public. Man alive. Laundry with the royal insignia all over it. 0344 499 1000. Because the upshot, by the way, is that interview never needed to happen. There was no need for them to do that interview. Why would they do that interview? Was it revenge? Was it about rebellion? Was it about the money? Was the cash register ringing up by the second? I think it probably was. 0344 499 1000. The wider question and the effect this has on the future of the royal family. So people like me can sit here as a middle-aged bloke and go, yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? I think he's right, if anyone's right in all of this, and, you know, he's ended up on the wrong side of an argument, and we want things to continue as they were, and she's clearly stirring it up nicely, making life, you know, great for her, and taking him along for the journey too. But I think, you know, if you're maybe under 30, you might be reading this very differently.